Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third session in our four-part electric school bus training support series. And just like last time, before we get started, we're going to go through a couple of housekeeping items. First, please utilize the Q&A option for our great panelists if you want to ask them any questions. If you're having any technical difficulties or there's other things you want to say, like hey to somebody else who's on the call, we do have the chat working finally. So you will be able to chat with one another in the chat. You can send messages directly to the speakers if you wish. But if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. Um, and just like last time, towards the end of today's session, we're going to share a survey link within the Zoom. And we ask that you please fill out this very brief survey. One, this is how we can improve our training. And two, this is how we get paid by showing that you all attended, you were there to the end, and it helps give us really valuable feedback. And lastly, these sessions are being recorded. We will be sharing them on our YouTube channel in a private link for all of you, so you can share it with your coworkers or other school districts. And we ask that, if we share it, that we also share a survey link and the quizzes, so we can try to track who is watching it, because we want to be able to keep up with who's taking advantage of this valuable resource. So enough of me and all of the intro. Let's get started. Today, we're having a very important conversation tailored for school districts who are operating electric school buses, who are also interested in it. So this is all about operations. And anytime a fleet transitions to a new fuel or technology, there's challenges, there's periods of adjustments. And today's session is going to walk you through some of the resources currently available to you as operators of electric school buses or people who wish to operate electric school buses. And we're also going to share some access to some technical documentation and some other support channels. We want to hear, we will also hear from a school district with years of experience operating electric fleets. You're going to hear about lessons learned from other school districts, navigating maintenance, warranty, parts challenges, and we're also going to offer you strategies to help keep your buses on the road and detail how to connect with peer networks and third-party service providers. And we're really going to help try to clarify what support is available and how you can advocate for assistance as you manage your fleets going forward. Specifically, we are going to be touching on the Lion Electric buses. So if you have been awarded a Lion Electric and you have them sitting on your lots right now, we will be going through some troubleshooting and some technical support options that you have available to you. If you do not have Lion Electric buses, don't worry, there's plenty more information that we will be providing for you here today. So the agenda on the call today, we're going to get right with it. We're going to start with Alder Castro with Jackson Public Schools. He'll be talking about his direct experience utilizing electric school buses and what it's like to operate them in his fleet. Next, we're going to have Emmett with WRI talking about some key considerations that you really need to hone in on to keep your buses operating and on the road. Same thing with Will Adams with Fleet eForce. He'll be coming at it from a slightly different angle, talking about experience with electric school buses. And finally, Matthew Scott will join us from Highland Electric Fleets, talking specifically about Lion Electric support issues. And then we will have a break in between the first two. Well, we'll have the first two presentations. We'll have a break. We'll have a pop quiz. Then we'll have the final two, and then we'll go into the Q&A. All right, so now that everybody knows what the agenda is today, we're going to get started. And so up next, first, we have Alder Castro. Alder, take it away.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alder Castro. I'm the director at Jackson Public Schools. Here to talk about these EVs, right? Um, at JPS, we've had a great experience. We have 20 Gen Ed buses, two SPED buses, paired with 11 chargers and 22 stations. So each charger has two stations. Compared to diesel and propane, these have their own challenges. And I think one of our main components at our lot in our success has been our drivers, being involved. Our drivers' willingness to adapt and be part of the EV experience has been huge for us. It was tough at first, but slowly started coming along. These are brand new, nice buses, and they love them now. Um, our mechanics gone through some Highland training and resources, but for the most part, we just deal with mechanical issues, right? Headlights, fluids, brakes, etc. Whenever it's electrical, it's sent over. We have a Highland, we partner with Highland. So we have a dashboard where we see all our buses, we see them charging, we see where they are. They have GPS and all that good stuff. So on that Highland dashboard, we can keep track of everything going on with our buses. Um, and we put our tickets in there whenever it's an electrical issue, and Highland will send a tech out to us, or it'll be sent out to Cummins, and they will take care of any electrical issues like sensors and whatever things that our drivers are not, our mechanics are not trained on. Um, Luckily, we have 55 buses in our fleet. Um, we have 40 routes, so we have propane and diesel spares, but our drivers hate going back to those noisy buses after, nice, quiet, brand new EV. They hate going back. So they make sure they're troubleshooting, they're learning and getting educated on how to really keep their buses up and running, right? Um, so I think some of the main things that we've encountered, I'm in Michigan now, so it's a very, very cold state. The cold affects the EVs, especially the charging component of it all. Um, so especially in the winter, charging can become a challenge due to our dual charging stations and more power when using heaters. Our chargers are intermittent. So we have 11 chargers with 12 stations. And so what that means is that both buses we plugged in, right? But the charger will choose whoever plugged in first. And then that it will charge, the other bus will be in the queue. Um, and once that bus is charging, the second bus will start charging. So some of our issues started there early on. We thought it was just as easy as charging, going home, and all good. We realized that sometimes the charger was not switching over properly to charge the bus in queue. So we'll have one bus charged and the other bus wouldn't be charging. So like I said, having somebody who is constantly on the dashboard, having somebody who's constantly going on site checking the physical charges, making sure they're plugged, making sure they're charging, making sure that sequential charging happened, that it switched over to the other bus is very important. So even still, we've had them for 2, 3 years now. Even still, every so often, we got to make sure that next bus in queue is charged. So I have we call him our EV tech guy. He's a seasoned bus driver who's very interested in all EV, and he's our guy. He's on a dashboard. He's going out there. He's checking these buses, making sure they're charging. And if they're not, it's just as simple as unplugging the one in queue, not charging, and plugging it back, making sure that handshake happens and you get the proper light, and then it's charging. So it's one of the main things that, right, got to be charged for them to be in use, right? So charging is super important, and that intermittent charging, having someone checking is very important. I would also recommend, like, so we're in Michigan and it's very cold. Our chargers are outdoors, so they're super affected by anything happening outdoors. So climate is a big deal for us. We're constantly checking the weather to see what our next move is going to be. Um, because ours get wet, frozen, snowed on, and they freeze in the ports. The ports inside will freeze, and those things will make the charging stop. So if you're in a wintry state and haven't gotten some yet, I'd recommend a roof or a charger cover or something that's gonna help it not freeze or cover it from the weather. Um, it's been a big challenge for us. In our grant, we got a couple things, and one of the we're supposed to get a heated island and some stuff, but some stuff fell through in the grant, and so it's been very challenging. The cable management and the charger management, the actual physical charger, they freeze, they're cold, and it's tough in the morning. They won't come out. You finally get them out. You see the busted in charge. This was early on though. We're very equipped now. We make sure they're charging. We have heat guns. We have things that just make our life easier when it comes to those wintry months, right? So, any questions about charging, anything like that? Then I'll just continue. Um, and as far as operations, driving wise, our buses have been great. So we have 22. We're gonna get another one soon. So we have 22 buses. Um, and I can say they have been great. They've been operational. The issue is the charging in these batteries. So our buses are equipped with two batteries, a 12-volt battery that starts the bus, and then an electric battery that runs the bus, runs the lights, and actually runs the bus. We found in our time um, that turning off the electric battery, sorry, on the weekends, on long weekends, holidays, spring breaks, has really helped us out big time. Um, when we turn that battery off, we come back the next day or the following 2, 3 days, and we turn it back on. The bus starts right up. It's like brand new, like just if it was a day in between. We've realized that when we don't turn that battery off and they're plugged into the chargers, once it's fully charged, and let's say it sequentially went to the next bus in queue and it charged, and they both got to 100%. The charger will continue to try and charge the bus even if it's 100%. So once it's at 100%, it's still gonna since the battery's still working or it's still on, it continues to charge, 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 and that ends up draining your battery. And so you left it on Friday with 100% state of charge. You get back on Monday and you're at 50, and we're wondering why, and coming into the lot over the weekend, checking it out, we realized that when it's continuing to try charging, it actually is draining the battery. And so us turning that 12 volt, the electric battery off over the weekend, coming back, turning it on, it's been wonderful since then. We have no issues at all. The buses start right up. No sensor issues, no light issues. It's like it was from one day to the next. Another issue we ran into is having to give a lot of jumps in the beginning because of that electric battery staying on. We had to jump the buses maybe every Monday, maybe 15 of my buses I had to jump at first, almost every Monday. And that was until we figured out we turn that battery off and we don't jump the buses anymore. It has to be something extreme that it didn't charge or that it got completely drained. But we do not have to jump our batteries anymore since we are turning those batteries off over the weekend or holidays. So that has been a that has been great for us finding that out in our operations for the morning, especially those wintry mornings when you guys, the drivers get there and they have to now pre-trip, but they can't pre-trip because the bus won't start. We have to get it started, but it's very cold, and all those things have had a huge, factor in us finding out and troubleshooting and doing some research, finding out what ways we can get these buses started quicker after a holiday or a weekend, and that has been great. Some great insight we found out, right? And so when you have to jump it, it's also the battery's essentially dead. And so sometimes when you start it from jumping, it's like you'll have a sensor that never went off going off all of a sudden because it was essentially dead. So that's one of the things we found very useful on the weekends or long breaks. Um, Another thing is the power you're charging with, right? The kilowatts per hour. Um, at our district in the summer and the hotter months, which is there's 3 months here in Michigan, it's not much, but in the summer we can charge at 12 kilowatts per hour, and that'll get us where we need to go. That'll get us to 100% state of charge or above 90 at least to run our routes. And so we've paired our EVs with our shortest routes just to ensure, battery life and we have enough charge to get through a route. So our routes are about, we have two routes. We have an AM and a PM, and in each AM and PM we have two tiers. And so they're each about an hour, 20 minutes, hour 15. So hour 20. So essentially almost 3 hours. And we need it to be at 100%, at least 95% to make it through that entire run. So we've paired our EVs with our shorter routes. So I don't know how you guys do in different districts, but in our district, we bid our routes out. We have 40 routes out and they bid on it. And when they bid on it, on that route, we have EV. Just so you know, when you get this route, it's coming with an EV. So our older drivers do not want the EV. They don't want to see them, touch them, smell them, but our newer drivers like them. So we let them know right off the bat, if you're grabbing this route, it's a shorter route in mileage, you're gonna get an EV with it. And that has helped us out too. Our first year, we just kind of let them bid out and gave them the buses, and we were running into issues where people were running out of charge all the time, and it was because their routes were longer. They were in the back roads and things like that, and it really wasn't, working out for the operation, having those long routes on the EVs. So that break in the middle. So we all have, common schedule. We pick the students up from home, we get them to school, we have that 3 or 4 hour break, and then we go get them from school, take them home. So making sure the buses are charging in that break is super important. Making sure they're cycling, making sure they're intermittently charging. And like I said, I'm always gonna go back to having that person, whether it's the director, whether it's your dispatcher, whoever it is, having that person go out there who really cares, who really wants to make sure we can get up and running and things will be operating smoothly. So having that guy go out there in the middle of the day, making sure everything's charging, making sure everything's up and running, helps out a lot. But due to the short charging period, right? It's not like overnight where they charge all night. They can do 12 kilowatts even in the winter. But in that short period from 3 to 4, once we've gotten to 25, 20%, we really need those 3, 4 hours to be, you know, charging hardcore. So, um, when our buses are charging at 12 kilowatts during the break, our buses won't have sufficient charge for the afternoon, especially in the winter months because we're using heat, we're using all these things that drastically bring your power down, your state of charge. So we're partnered with Highland. We work with Highland. They bring great resource for communication and key aspects to our EV fleet. So during that break, we raise our kilowatt per hour to a minimum of 45 kilowatts per hour to ensure all our buses get to 100% state of charge. If they do, sometimes we do 60 and that bumps it up even quicker, but at 45 kilowatts per hour, all of our buses get up to 100% state of charge. Like I said, in the evening, they're sitting there for 8, 10 hours. So 12 kilowatts is just fine. It'll charge all night. They charge slowly. As long as they cycle and intermittently go to the next bus in queue, things will be fine and it'll charge. But in that short break, making sure and just going over and looking at the research and data, getting on your dashboard, those things are so important. Um, One other great thing our buses have, I'm not sure if every EV has it, but ours has that regenerative braking. We're in a city, so we have a lot of success with that. As you drive, you let go of the accelerator, let the bus kind of cruise. Um, and this causes the bus to regenerate some energy. And our drivers that properly regen brake get up to 10% more in their state of charge. So that's super helpful. Once you're getting to on a wintry day, you're pumping that heat. A lot of EVs come with diesel heaters. Ours came with electrical heaters. We have the heaters from the same bus, so it really drastically brings our percentage down, our power down. So when we have that regen braking, when you're able to just let go of that accelerator and let it regen some, once you get to 20% and the heater kind of kicks off, or you're kind of going, you're getting low, 10% more is huge for a driver trying to get back to the lot, you know? So, um, I really didn't have much, but I would say the more research and time spent getting to know your fleet, getting to know your bus, getting to know your chargers, getting to know what they do. You would expect all buses to do the same thing, all chargers do the same thing, but they don't. They're very different. Our chargers 1, 2 do different things than 4 and 5. You got to be a little more patient with them. You got to unplug and plug and unplug and plug, and you have to have that person who's willing to make that happen, to have that patience to care enough for your fleet to be up and running. Um, our drivers love the EVs and have spent the time to diagnose their buses to know and be able to pinpoint what each sensor causes or what each sound, what each alarm is. It takes time and experience riding them. And I would say 3 years in now, our drivers are pros. We have a summer, a fall, winter, and a spring little meeting, on best driving tips with Highland. They come down. Highland has been great. Highland, we have huge communication with them. We have meetings once a week with the tech team, and we have a tech here almost every other day, just checking on the buses. So partnering with someone is super important too. Having somebody who really knows, because we're just trying to figure it out. We're trying to troubleshoot. We're trying to see, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? But they know. They've gone through the trainings and through the research, and but I will also say, having passionate techs and mechanics and drivers run the fleet will make the difference. It's made a huge positive impact on my department, creating a huge culture of learning and willingness to adapt to make the EVs a huge part of our district. And it's been cleaner, been quieter. You can hear your kids. It's just we love the EVs in our district. They've been great. And if you don't have any questions for me, that's all I got.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions out there. So one, what manufacturer, what kind of buses do you
Bluebird,
have? Where'd you get them from?
Bluebird.
Bluebird?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just awesome. All right, so for safety training, what kind of safety training did you do for your team? And did the first responders in your area potentially get any safety training as well on the electric buses when they came in?
So we did a snow cone event um with Highland where they partnered with the community, and we plugged the bus into a snow cone machine to make snow cones for the kids in the summer and stuff to show how diverse our EVs are. They can power a little building, they can power some lights, they can make some snow cones in the summer. And our first responders were there.
Mhm.
And it was a crash course there, not gonna lie, it was a crash course where they spoke to Highland for a little bit and spoke about some of the concerns the community had on the buses blowing up or but things like that. They were just saying crazy things. But um we had a safety training with Highland without the first responders, just us, in case of different water malfunctions and or smokiness or things that can happen on the bus. We had it with Highland. They came in when we first started the program after the grant.
Awesome. Okay. And I know you're working with Highland, and others may not be working with them. They may just have their regular telematics or other
Mhm.
software. But what kind of reports and what kind of data have you found most useful in your operations?
So on that Highland, all I can speak about is Highland because that's why, on our Highland dashboard, um, it really breaks things down for you. It breaks down the state of charge it had when something happened to it. It breaks down. I think the charging for our bigger issues have been charging. I haven't really had issues mechanically or operation. It's been charging. Our bigger issues have been charging. And the dashboard, they've made it better and better like with the years, depending on what we've needed. And just I think the dashboard in general, giving us that state of charge, giving us any sensor issues that come up on the bus, giving us any light issues, any alarm issues. That dashboard has been very thorough. It doesn't We don't really have to do much work. We know what's happening. We
Mhm.
know and then we have a tech there all the time as well. So we really put in tickets and they get taken care of.
Awesome. So I'm assuming you had EPA Clean School Bus funding to fund this
Correct.
project.
Correct.
Would you apply for EPA school bus funding again?
I would. I would. It was intense, but what we got from it, I think, was bigger. I think we got, I think is what we got is great for the community. I think it's great for our schools that we're just closer step to the future, being a little cleaner. We have a big, well, for in our community, our district is pretty big. Um, and having 55 propane diesels clanking around, man, we're loud. It was loud and dirty, greasy, and and our lot is much cleaner. Our schools are much cleaner. Um, the paperwork and stuff is a little tedious. It's intense. It's intense. And then we had an audit now for all that stuff, and they asked for a lot of stuff that I don't even have no more, honestly, but we're getting through it, little by little, and I would do it again. I think we got some brand new nice buses that were 2024, and I was able to get rid of some 2012, 2014 clankety clanks, to get some brand new, quiet, almost flying EVs. So we love our EVs in our district. We really do.
Awesome. So, what were those documents that you got rid of that you wish you would have kept for the audit?
My fuel logs for the fuel logs for they were there this is before I even got there. I've been director there for 2 years now, and some of the buses were already out of service before they weren't being used before. So when we got them junked and did all that stuff and went through all the process, they weren't being used already for a little bit. So they didn't have fuel logs. I don't know what the past management was doing there or how it was run. But we have a fuel log and a pre-trip log for every single time big buses go out. So we just didn't have any of those for the old buses that were junked before I got there. We didn't have any of it. So we did the audit, things went fine, but now they're asking me for those papers. I'm like, how am I supposed to even get that? Like I wasn't even there. But we'll figure something out. But
Yeah. So we did have a question in the chat. Someone wanted to know what brand of chargers do you use?
okay. So it was Borg Warner at
BorgWarner.
first. It was Borg Warner, but now Borg Warner is
Right.
going out or so we're supposed to be in some type of transition, but we still have Highland picked up Borg Warner. Highland has some Borg Warner techs. So it's been great having them get some Borg Warner techs that can come down and help us out with our charges. But yeah, they're Borg Warner.
Yeah.
Holland, Borg Warner. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great segue because next week the entire discussion is all about charging, setting up, designing, planning your charging, and we can go into even more. But the operational aspects of living with the choices that you made for today's discussion is great. It's fantastic. Does anybody have any more questions? You can put it in the Q&A. If you put it in the chat, I will see it. But before we move on to our
I
next
think
here.
I think I actually have one
Great.
that I've heard a lot from school boards just kind of when discussing electric school buses in Louisiana is from your perspective, if a fleet is looking at trying out electric school buses, what do you think the minimum number of buses would be that they should consider in order to test it out? Because I know testing out like one makes it really, really hard for like loads of logistic reasons, but investing a ton is also challenging for like risk reasons. So kind of where do you think the sweet spot might be for a fleet?
And I would say, yeah, because one is not enough, but we got 22 off the jump. So it was a tough experience because it was just 22 different buses, 22 different, situations at times. Um, I would say five, 4 or 5. You'll have 4 different things going on, and maybe two will just be fine. Because out of the 22, 12 were fine. Never gave us any issues. Charged, didn't die. But we had 10 that were just constantly not charging, constantly not. It was those 10 really gave us a run for our money that first year. Then that first winter, they kicked our butt. They did. But luckily we had spares and stuff like that. But I think 5 is that number for you to really be able to still operate
Mm,
and not depend on the 22 buses you all of a sudden got you don't know anything about. So,
fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So if you could stick around for a little while, in case somebody has a few more questions, we'd really appreciate it. But
of course, of
thank you so much, Aldair. We're
course.
going to move on to the next speaker. So we have Emmett Weatherman with WRI, and he's going to be talking about key considerations for electric school bus operations and maintenance. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share so you can load up. Oh,
Perfect.
there you
Thank you,
go.
Ann. Appreciate you having me on. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. Does that look good to y'all? Okay,
Looks
wonderful.
good.
Great. So yeah, no, I think what I'm going to be running through today actually will complement a lot of what Altair shared from the actual fleet experience. But yeah, for everyone, I'm really excited to be here today. Really excited that Louisiana Clean Fuels is putting on this webinar to highlight some really key information here on electric school bus operations. For those who don't know me, my name is Emmett Worthman. I'm an associate on the Electric School Bus Initiative, which is a part of the World Resources Institute. We're an environmental nonprofit think tank working on this project to accelerate school bus electrification. Personally, I've been working in the electric vehicle sector for a little over 7 years now. And for the last two, a good portion of my time has been focused on understanding how we can support fleets in getting, the proper training and proper information for reliable electric school bus operations to their drivers, maintenance staff, and other folks working in the fleet. I've taken a few trainings myself, and also have done a lot of work working closely with fleets who are making the transition to electric as well. So, with that, today I'm going to be covering kind of two key topic areas. The first is on ensuring how ways that you can ensure safe, reliable, and effective electric school bus operations. And then the second are setting expectations for your maintenance capabilities that you want to have within your electric school bus fleet. At its core, I think I'll just make a note that a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, and I think a lot of this webinar really gets at its core to like the people who are working in student transportation and how they're interacting with a new technology. It's about getting people the knowledge and the qualifications that they need to safely and efficiently operate these buses, as well as implementing, the systems and processes into a fleet that can help you anticipate problems, can help you also maximize uptime. Um, so, yeah, at its core, I think this deals with people, it deals with workers. I think a lot of the focus can sometimes be on the shiny new technology and the infrastructure, but really it comes down to like people and making sure that people are informed and confident and feel supported in the transition to electric as well. So, with that, just a quick background for those who aren't familiar. WRI is a nonprofit organization in the Electric School Bus Initiative. We're supporting the transition to electrified student transportation by publishing free resources and tools and guides on our website. And we also provide free technical assistance to anyone who needs it. We do this by working with, school districts and fleets. We also have relationships with the manufacturers of the buses, electric utilities and charging infrastructure providers, financing providers for financing solutions, as well as we work with policymakers on federal and state funding, and then also with local communities, all towards making this, when the transition to electric is happening in your community, that it's being done equitably, and everyone can have access to the benefits. So. I'll also just highlight that we have published over 200 tools. All of these can be found for free on the Electric School Bus Initiative website. Um, so definitely recommend you checking that out. And then, as I mentioned, we do provide free technical assistance to districts. So, please feel free to schedule a call with us and set up some time to talk if you have questions or want to learn more. Um, yeah. So yeah, first section here, gonna dive into just safe, efficient, reliable operations and some tips and tricks and ideas for how that can be done. I'm going to start here on the left side, but first is training and education. I think worth highlighting that there is initial training that's really important. So it's not something that should be just done even upon bus delivery, but if you can start training folks before buses are delivered. I know in the second webinar in this series that the electric school bus training standards that our team at WI produced were featured. And there's a lot of learning outcomes in there that I think are really important for understanding what key information you need to know in bringing electric buses into your fleet. Training includes that extends from like front desk staff to dispatchers to bus aides to drivers, fleet managers, transportation directors, technicians, trainers, basically anyone interacting with these buses. Down to that third box there really needs at least at the very basic some high voltage safety awareness, just to know how to interact with these buses and make sure that everyone has the knowledge to and skill set to effectively and safely do their job. There is a certain amount of training, different types of training will be required for different roles, from a driver to a technician. But I think there's a lot of planning that can go into making sure that folks just get the right information that they need. Um, Also, I will just mention ongoing training. I think staff turnover, we've heard, can be a challenge for fleets. And even for those that are staying in staying in their role for as a driver or technician for several years, making sure that they're staying up to date on the latest information, or just getting refreshers on high voltage safety or how to, do perform regenerative braking and operate the buses most efficiently, and maximizing performance is something that's worthwhile. Um, and then lastly, emergency responder training. Ann mentioned this earlier, but wanted to call this out specifically. I think I strongly recommend making sure you're working with your local dealer and your local first responders to set up a training for those folks. It's really important for them to know how to identify the electric models as well as manage those vehicles in the case of an emergency. So, yeah. And then to the center column here, just thinking about fleet capabilities and what do you want your fleet to be capable of? There's a lot that you can try and bring in-house, but there's also a lot that you can outsource. Aldair mentioned, working with Highland fleets, for example. So a lot of that expertise and knowledge and administrative portions of maintenance and other things, you're working with someone else to do that. So thinking about what you want to be able to do on your own versus partnering with others is something to think about. Within that, just you want to think about establishing and following some standard operating procedures, which is really important. This can include everything from managing cables, making sure they're not getting run over when unplugging and plugging in. Things like checking, knowing who to call if there's a problem with a bus or a charger, if there's whether you need to call your dealer or your charging system provider or a maintenance contractor that you're working with, or if you're contracting out bus operations, knowing who to call, just having emergency procedures documented, preventative maintenance protocols and intervals, also things that can be documented. So with the new technology, bringing it into your fleet, it's important to be able to, have a procedure for some of these newer things, and also working on figuring out what works best. Alder mentioned that, having issues with those chargers, and over a few months, they were able to kind of troubleshoot, figure out what's wrong, and put in a process in place that can help, solve some of that, and have a procedure in place that can avoid and limit, a problem. So. Something else you can think about is like pre and post trip inspections. After completing a route, making sure that once you complete the route, you plug the bus into the charger or the charger into the bus, that the charging session has commenced, has started. You have that digital handshake between the charger and the bus, and make sure just you're having a visual check that the charging session has started. You don't want to arrive for the route the next route the next day and see that the vehicle actually hasn't been charged overnight because the handle didn't get pushed in enough or something on the software side had a hiccup or anything like that. All of these things I think can help just reduce wear and tear, improve consistency, improve uptime, and expectations on day-to-day operations. Something else, to think about is just defining responsibilities both for staff within your fleet, but also with anyone that you're partnering with on electrification. This can include working with like your electric utility or a management company for the charging stations, your bus dealer, any companies who are providing training to you, your bus, if you're working with a contractor for operations, working with them, anyone providing maintenance. Every fleet, as you know, is going to have a slightly different setup when it comes to who's responsible for different aspects of daily operations. Um, so, going back to the example of like checking if a charger session has started or stopped, do you want that to be the responsibility of a driver, or do you want to be, sort of a fleet management staff, or do you want it to be a technician who's doing that? That goes kind of down to like staff responsibility within a fleet. But then you can start thinking about, just establishing clear roles and responsibilities for many different aspects of things of these operations, and that you can also potentially use, have some of these responsibilities documented in your purchase contract for buses or chargers, or establishing a service level agreement, or other contracts to just help avoid any confusion or finger pointing or just diffusion of responsibility in the case of something that needs to be fixed. Similarly, jumping down to maintenance and troubleshooting, I think I'm going to elaborate this a little bit more in the next section, but I do think it's worth taking some time about thinking about what do you want your on-site capabilities to be for maintenance at your depot versus potentially off-site capabilities. Aldair mentioned, working on-site with technicians, but then also having maintenance support from Highland or the bus being sent to Cummins, or having those techs come in. So there's a few different maintenance entities in that situation. You want to think about who's covering warranty maintenance. How quickly can they respond to an issue? Are you keeping spare parts on site for quick issues? What type of training do you want your techs to have to be able to troubleshoot or actually solve a problem? Those are just all important questions to be asking yourself. And similarly, preventative maintenance. What level of preventative maintenance? Who's going to be responsible for that? This is everything from, fluid checks on the bus for, the coolant fluid for keeping the batteries at the right temperature, or wiping down, digital screens on the chargers, just checking filters and charging stations, making sure things aren't getting overheated. There's a fair amount of preventative maintenance that comes with the new electric equipment, and doing that on a regular interval can help make sure that, everything is working properly and you're avoiding bigger problems that could be caused from something like overheating and you have to replace a whole unit rather than one little, piece of a or part of a component or of a system. So, and then, oops, sorry, didn't mean to go that far. Here we go. Lastly, here, just smart systems, thinking about implementing redundancy, how you can implement that into your operations, whether it's having procedures or equipment in place for when things don't go according to plan. A couple of scenarios you might think about are, if your electric bus temporarily is not operational, you can consider keeping, a spare bus on hand, whether that's electric or a non-electric, or a diesel vehicle. Knowing who's responsible for maintenance, if when a problem arises, you're making sure someone's able to address that pretty quickly. Making sure you're training on-site staff to potentially interpret diagnostic trouble codes. Even if someone's not cleared to perform high voltage maintenance in your fleet, if they can relay a diagnostic trouble code to your service provider, that can help expedite service and parts ordering and things like that. If your charging station is down, thinking about, do you have parts on it, is your handle breaking right, somewhat regularly? Do you want to have a extra handle or a cable in stock? Or making sure that your service provider has those parts ready to go. And things just, keep things, having redundancy in place can help make sure that you maintain uptime. Things like having if your driver who drives one of your electric buses normally calls out sick, do you have some backup folks who have also been trained on how to drive these buses that can come and operate the vehicles and know how to do regenerative braking and feel comfortable with the new technology. So things like that I think can be really important to just making sure everything's running smoothly. And then lastly here, just a couple other systems that you can think about. Aldir mentioned, having, cold temperatures in the winter, warm temperatures in the summer. Battery cabin and cabin preconditioning are something that I think everyone should be aware of. Preconditioning is what enables, it's a system that can be put in place that enables the bus to bring the cabin up to a preferred temperature and also the battery up to the optimal temperature in the hours or the minutes before a bus is unplugged from the charger and begins its route. And this is something that can be automated. So this means basically, if you don't have preconditioning, you're going to be using the energy to cool or heat the cabin or the battery while the bus is en route, getting that temperature up in the winter or down in the summer. And the more energy that you need to use to heat the cabin or cool the battery while the bus is running, the less range that vehicle is going to have. So installing preconditioning is something that can be automated. It's just ready to go when the driver arrives and the bus is warm or cool and ready to go. But something to think about there that can really help with operations. And then managed charging or smart charging, there's a lot of benefits to that, to reducing electricity bills, to tracking energy consumption, to just monitoring charging the status of your chargers or your buses. One feature that some managed charging systems allow you to have is just like over the air or email updates to email or text to alert you that like a charging session has stopped midway or has not started. Aldair mentioned issues with having someone go out there regularly to check if chargers are the charging session is still going before the day is done. But there is some features that you can put in place to make sure that is being done automatically, letting you know that, oh, it's 11 p.m., your bus is not charging for some reason. This could be caused by, a software update that's been pushed by a charger company, or, a variety of other reasons. So, making sure that know what's going on with the fleet systems and that you're showing up the next day and everything's ready to go. So. Just quickly here, I wanted to highlight a couple planning resources that I definitely recommend folks checking out, more so on the training side. Both of these can be found on the EPA Clean School Bus website, but the first is a workforce planning PDF that just really dives into getting everyone in your fleet the right training and the information that they need. And this is something that's worth reading and taking a look at before you even order buses. And then also short 10-minute training from the Clean Cities on driver and technician training and just who needs to be involved there. I also think that's worth checking out. It would complement some of the content in the previous webinars in this series. And then lastly, just want to flag this for everyone. Highly recommend that everyone use this course in their fleet. Even if you're just considering electric buses, it's a 2-hour free course online produced by the Workforce Development Institute in New York. But I found this to be, highly informative for myself, and I really encourage all fleets to have, take a look at this, and then before buses arrive to your fleet, making sure that everyone in your fleet is completing this training. It's free again, it's online, it's only 2 hours long, but I think really provides a really great baseline that can then be complemented by training provided by the OEM themselves. So once buses actually arrive. And then lastly here, just noting that the electric school bus training standards are a resource that we put out. I believe these were highlighted in the last webinar as well. But this outlines learning outcomes for electric school bus training from everyone from the community members and students to what drivers need to know and technicians and others. So. Next, just the second section here, want to dive into how you can set expectations for what your maintenance capabilities are going to be. Maintaining these buses is an important part of, making sure you have a quality uptime on your electric operations. And there's a few things to think about when you're doing that. Just a little primer here, I think worth noting what is different and similar between internal combustion buses and electric. You'll note in blue that there's actually quite a few common systems and components between the two fuel types. And your on-site technicians are going to be able to do most of the maintenance that they've already done on the cabin and replacing tires and other things like that. There are a few systems that change for the electric vehicle. And then there are, systems that are fully removed, obviously, and then some new systems for EV. So the vehicles on the whole are, have less components, but there is new considerations with the technology. You have the high voltage components as well. You have some extra safety measures you want to put in place for working on those. So. Yeah, and then just here, I think worth breaking down the types of maintenance generally at a high level that are worth noting for the electric. You obviously, as I mentioned, have your routine and preventative maintenance. This includes everything from the cabin to the body, all your low voltage systems, the 12-volt systems that are already in buses of all types, your brakes, your tires, fluid checks. All of that can be performed at the fleet depot without any extra training. Fleet technicians, yeah, as I mentioned, already possess a lot of this expertise. There may be some new preventative maintenance procedures that you want to implement for your buses and also the fueling infrastructure, the chargers. The big difference here with electric is the high voltage maintenance and repair, which cannot be performed by a technician until they've received specialized training, and also generally certification from the OEM if that bus is still under warranty. So this gets me to, warranty maintenance, which is, I think, a really important component that we've heard a lot of districts talk about. But without, certification, performing repairs on the high voltage systems can void the vehicle warranty. So there's very specific set kind of stipulations with these buses after you purchase them that, you know, either the OEM or the dealer or their powertrain provider are the people that can provide, high voltage maintenance on those vehicles, kind of unless otherwise specified. And maybe they need to bring a certified technician to perform work on site. But it's overall really important to think about, understanding what falls under warranty maintenance, what are the responsibilities that your fleet is going to have, and then when that warranty ends, 6 to 8 years down the line, thinking about are you going to be able to prepare your technicians to take over that maintenance, make sure they're qualified and know how to operate on these vehicles safely, and down the line. So. And then, in tandem and kind of complement to that last slide, just thinking about are you an urban district or are you a rural district, as a function of how close is your fleet to the nearest service center that can perform maintenance? Is it down the block or is it, 3 hours away? Do you have a plan in place to ensure that your vehicles and chargers can be repaired in a timely manner? And how long would it take in general for service to be done on your fleet, whether it's something that your fleet can fix immediately with your on-site expertise, or a part needs to be ordered. How long is that going to take? How long does it take for a technician to come out and service your fleet if you need to call someone in? Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but what are your capabilities on site that you want to have? What type of training do you want to be able to in service do you want to perform on site versus your how much do you want to outsource? Do you want to keep spare parts on site? Things like that. Also mentioned this before, but just think about ongoing training. It's really helpful for staff turnover and just keeping everyone continually involved and educated. And then, as Anne mentioned, this next webinar will be on following this will be on charging station maintenance. But just think about who's going to be responsible for that. This can differ between AC and DC equipment. So that's another, new piece of technology you want to make sure that is you're able to maintain and someone is covering. So just lastly here, a couple slides just on a few relevant resources. One, just think about, when you're writing your purchase order and also RFPs for your buses and your chargers, think about writing training into some of that documentation and those agreements, and getting a strong sense of what type of training will be provided by an OEM, or anyone else that you're working with. The International Transportation Learning Center produced a guide on including zero emission bus training into RFP language. And then our team at WRI also has the RFP template that you can use for putting those out for buses and chargers. So, and then lastly, just something to consider is establishing service level agreements for buses and chargers. And I think the main takeaway here is just that you're not just having an uptime guarantee in there, but you're having processes that are agreed upon and put in place that will ensure a certain amount of uptime, whether that is regular preventative maintenance intervals, the availability of spare parts, and expectations for how long it might take for someone to come out and fix an issue. So that can apply to both the buses and the chargers. And lastly, I'll just highlight here, this is a boot camp that I had the chance to enroll in Utah, Weber State University. This is something you might consider programs like this for your technicians if you wanted to bring some of that expertise in-house. So yeah, that was the slides that I have today, but thank you for having me on. Happy to
Thank you,
take
Emmett.
questions.
There's so many resources that we have been providing and that you have available on your websites and in your presentation. Wanted to let everybody know that we are going to be collecting the best of the best. We're recording each one of these sessions and we're going to provide all of that back to you so you can have it just all in one place. And so if don't worry, if you missed something or you missed a link or you didn't get a link to something, one, you can email or call any of our speakers and you can reach out to us. And we're also thinking about having a little cohort meeting after the fact where we can all just get together and talk about what we've learned and ask more questions and share some insights and see what further support you all need. So be on the lookout for a doodle poll in the near future so we can try to get together in an informal Zoom meeting. I know it's hard for us all to get together in person, um, but we will be doing that coming forward. So thank you so much. Our next speaker this morning is Will Adams with Fleet eForce, and he's going to be talking to you more about experiences and best practices of operating electric school buses. I am going to stop my share real quick so that if you have slides, you may share them. And you're on mute.
All right, there we go. Um, I'm a little new to Zoom, figuring out where my PowerPoint is inside my computer here.
No problem.
Oh,
So while you're doing that, we do have a question in the Q&A that we can go over. Let me say, how many EV buses are required to make a substantial reduction in your operating expenses for maintenance and fuel? When does it become noticeable in your budget? Does anyone on the panel want to answer that while Will is pulling up his slides?
Hey, and I'm happy to answer.
Sure.
Hey, everyone, Dan Rosenfield, Highland Electric Fleets. We do turnkey school bus electrification. We say, and what we mentioned in our presentation a few weeks ago was typically you want to invest in pilots, and that pilot is about 3 to 5. And that way you're leveraging the infrastructure, you're leveraging the build out, also just the staff time of building out your fleet, as well as there's a big training component as well. And so you're leveraging the institutional knowledge that has been built out once you hit that 3 to 5. You can see the total cost per mile of an electric school bus. If you just get a bus, is cheaper than diesel. So you could technically say after one, but 3 to 5 is really where you're seeing most of your savings.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. All right. You ready, Will?
think I'm ready.
All right, take it away.
All right, my name is Will Adams. I've been working with electric vehicles for just about 6 years or so. Um, I would say electric buses are definitely a challenge. There's a lot of differences between diesel buses and whatnot. I'd say that most above all else, practice is what's going to help people out during the transition. If it's charging, like Emmett had mentioned earlier, having drivers know if that's the driver's responsibility, what kind of sounds the vehicle makes, lights that might come on while they're charging. Um, Down to technicians, which I do a lot of training on technicians. I do a lot of training for technicians that covers tooling and proper PPE from gloves to the arc flash suits that a lot of manufacturers will recommend that people wear while they're doing tests to verify that voltage isn't there. The live dead live test is your verification that there's no voltage on the vehicle while you're working on it, while you're working on high voltage components on it. And then that kind of all happens after your lockout tagout. And lockout tagout is, again, something that most technicians are very used to with diesel buses and whatnot. But there are some changes when it comes to locking out an electric bus and trying to make sure that it's going to stay in a safe state while you're working on it, and retesting as you leave for lunch, as you leave for the night, um, practice working clean as you're opening up or working on high voltage systems. Dust and whatnot, water, sweat, whatever can get on these devices and can definitely create errors down the road. Um, so we do a lot of training, yeah, talking about tooling and proper care, different kind of testing that you would do on an electric vehicle. Isolation testing is one fault that can happen on electric vehicles where they're normally an isolated high voltage system, but through shielding on the wires or pinching wires, they can connect to chassis. And the vehicle is constantly testing the isolation value to make sure that it's not in a dangerous state. But once it gets close, once that resistance level drops below a certain threshold, you'll get a warning. And then at a certain point, the vehicle stops turning on. So it's an important test to understand and to be able to carry out if a vehicle is having that particular type of fault. Low voltage testing does have a lot of um, a lot of overlap with diesel buses as well. Uh, Again, just testing the low voltage system. Usually it's like a 24-volt system on larger buses like that. And they do have 12-volt systems as well. That same thing with diesel buses or propane buses. This is just some of the slides that we go through whenever I'm training. It goes over the live, dead, live test, where you're using your meter to verify your meter's working initially, and then to test the high voltage system, knowing where to test, because different manufacturers do have different locations that they want you to test at. And then your final step, going back to your known voltage, your known 12 or 24 volt. Usually I just use the batteries on the bus to verify your meter is still functioning correctly. And all of this is performed while you're wearing your proper PPE. Um, um, the other thing I thought was very interesting, we work with a few different manufacturers, and one of them is Proterra. Am I sharing the right screen there?
I sorry, I had to come off on mute. Basically,
Are you guys able to see this
we're seeing your
Proterra
PowerPoint
document here?
deck. No, we're seeing the same screen, but you'll
Let
have
me
to
try
stop
and
sharing,
reshare.
reshare again. Yeah.
There we go. So this is out of one of Proterra's manuals. Um,
Yes.
we thought that it was very interesting that we see somebody wearing just normal vinyl gloves and they're reaching into a battery area, and it's pointing out that there's always voltage present at this certain stud inside the battery. There's a plastic cover that should stay over that, and whenever you're working inside a battery like that, it's definitely recommended to have your high voltage gloves on. On the other half of the slide here, it says that there are no arc flash hazards present on the vehicle, and that's Proterra's opinion, I would say, that there's always a chance for arc flash. I mean, especially if you're working in the battery like it shows in this picture to the left. Um, these ones are 400-volt batteries, but a lot of vehicles are higher voltage now too. They're getting into that 800-volt range, and practicing good habits, even with the lower voltage battery packs, I think is best practice. So we, as a company, do offer training and whatnot. We've worked on a few different manufacturers, and we've got former technicians from a few of the different manufacturers, Proterra and Lightning, as well as Lion buses, we're able to source and trying to find different sources for, lights and um, other components, goes from like heaters to the brake components. A lot of these were, just purchased from bigger manufacturers, not like Lion was stamping their own brake pads or casting their own rotors and stuff. So as a company, we have been trying to find more local sources and just quicker response time than ordering directly through Lion up in Canada. I'd mentioned heaters. I think it was mentioned earlier that some electric vehicles do use diesel heaters to help extend the range that you can get on the electric side. Um, Depending on environment, I think down south too, it's definitely a good consideration to have, as battery technology is still kind of lacking to get those buses on longer routes. Um, I wanted to thank everybody for listening to me here and inviting me to this little webinar. And I appreciate everyone what they had to say here. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to you now.
Awesome. So, Will, I do have a little clarifying question that some of the
Oh,
people
no.
on the webinar may not understand. Why are we concerned about parts for Lion Electric? What happened with Lion Electric, and why are there so many challenges with those buses? You or Dan can answer, either one of you, but I want to make sure that the audience understands why we are putting a little bit of extra emphasis on the Lion Electric buses.
Will, you were speaking, so I'll defer to you.
Sorry, I lost sound after I had stopped sharing
Okay.
my screen there. We were talking about Lion buses.
Yeah, it's
So
like the people in the viewing audience and the people participating in this webinar may not be aware of what happened with Lion and why we're spending a little extra time talking about how to get parts and how to deal with operational concerns with the buses. If y'all wanted to give a little background about what happened.
yeah, so Lion was a company based out of Canada. They were selling buses down in the States and everything. They withdrew from the United States and kind of reopened in Canada. So they're still making buses up there, offering support there, but they have eliminated their warranty support down here in the United States. Um, and yeah, don't even offer a whole lot of like technical over the phone support really at this point.
Awesome. And Dan, um, yeah, you can probably give us a little bit, and probably Emmett too, give us some information on, what kind of resources and repercussions that is happening. Well, a little bit more high level before we get into your presentation.
Yeah, I mean, Will expressed it very accurately, and I also just have to be careful because they're a different company. But yeah, I mean, there's I don't think a single what you should do with your line fleets. There's different options, which include uh, doing a buyout, scrapping them, doing some sort of O&M model where you kind of augment. But it really just depends on kind of the quality of the fleet and what the plan of the fleet is for the next couple of years.
Fantastic. And I know WRI has a lot of resources and they're attempting to assist these fleets as well. All right, and Emmett just posted a link in the chat for all of you with some helpful resources.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to everyone, so maybe if you can might be just going to hosts and panelists, but this is once that
I'll make
does
sure
go
it's
up,
shared.
we have yeah, frequently asked questions for online electric school buses, and we also have uh, some like line documentation that we can share with fleets if they would like it. You can submit a form to request that if you do have line buses and want some of that documentation on parts and maintenance and things like that that we have. So.
Okay. And if y'all don't mind, while we have everybody, Dan is going to be speaking for Matt today. They're with the same company. So uh, while we get ready for that, I am going to launch the survey. because we need as many of you to participate in the survey as possible. And if some of you start hopping off, because I know 2 hours is a lot of time to be able to commit to this, we're going to launch the survey and have it going on the side while Dan is talking and giving his presentation. So if it gets in the way, let me know. I will end it and restart it. But if y'all are still able to see his presentation, let me know. Does it
I
look
get
like it's going to be, does it look like it's going to be in the way?
I think it looks like you can move it around, so it should be.
So I'm okay. So if I stick it way over here, or y'all can move it yourselves.
Yeah, I think everyone can move it on their own.
Okay, perfect. So please participate in the survey. But now we're going to kick it back over to Dan. I'm going to stop sharing so he can now share his screen. Perfect. Take it away, Dan.
Thanks, Hen. And everyone can see my screen. It
Yes.
says Highland. Cool. Well, hey everyone, Dan Rosenfield, Highland Electric Fleets. Great to be back and be a resource for school districts who are considering electrification. We're going to talk about the model that we have to offer for line fleets as just an option. We'll mention some of the work that he's doing, and we encourage you to explore different options on how to leverage and make the most out of your line fleet. What we do at Highland by nature is we do turnkey school bus fleet electrification. So as school districts are looking to either build on their current electric school bus fleet or even start from scratch, there's kind of two routes. You could do DIY, as we call it, and you buy the bus, you buy the charger, you kind of figure it out yourself. We've seen in school districts across the country that can lead to increased costs, complexity, and risk. And so what we do is we handle everything from we apply for the grants on your behalf. So we've secured about over $500 million from the EPA Clean School Bus Program. We do all the project planning and site planning. That's at no cost. We do all the building. We do all the infrastructure build out, all the permitting, work with the utility. We train your staff and drivers. And then we do all of the smart charging. So all of the fueling, maintenance reimbursement, and maintenance support to be a full turnkey package. So it really makes sure that the fleet and the school district is set up for success. We have the largest electric school bus project in North America, currently with over 1,000 electric school buses. I think the number we're looking at is about 1,200. So if you're looking for a school district near you that either we're working with or another vendor is working with, what they want some kind of best practices, feel free to reach out after. I can put you in touch with the local school districts. We have driven over 8 million miles and specifically want to touch on the school districts that we're advising on their line fleets right now. So none in the Louisiana, Texas area, but in Herscher, Illinois, we have an operations and maintenance contract with their line fleet. So they have line buses, but they kind of want that extra augmented support to make the most of their fleet. And then 2 districts in California, Twin Rivers and Linwood, were in kind of a consulting role. So I'll talk about some different options when it comes to leveraging your Lion fleet and what to do. Our Lion O&M offering is very customizable because every school district has a very different state of their electric fleet or their Lion fleet. So the first thing that we do for any school district with Lion is do at no cost kind of a fleet inspection. Are the Lion buses operable, and you kind of just want an extra little warranty and extra support with the technical support software, we can do that. Or are they just in really bad shape and not operable and sitting, which we have seen in several districts, and you want more of a from the ground up approach. So here are kind of the things that we can offer that will be based off of the district needs. So fleet inspection, we can train your technicians on site, either on the line buses or an augmented different vendor. We would do software and hardware for troubleshooting. We have a customized software that's called FleetX, where we can quickly identify what the issue is, either with the charger or the bus. We do remote technical support, so we can quickly identify what the issue is on the bus that your fleet is working on and can identify and diagnose and recommend how to fix it. We also have on-site technical support with technicians across the country. We have a separate 3PL network for parts. So somewhat what Will was talking about, where we have backup parts for some line buses, but also some interchangeable parts from other OEMs, an extended labor warranty, ongoing diagnostic software, and parts procurement. So that as you are trying to figure out what parts you need to augment and get your fleet to a higher uptime, we already have those parts in stock. So again, very customizable, but I think the important thing to know is it really just depends on what the status is of the fleet and where you want to go. Um, in broad categories, we say there's kind of an O&M contract, which means you have buses, they're working, you just need some operations maintenance support. Or there is, hey, you know what, they're not working at all. Let's scrap them with the next EPA round and get maybe a Bluebird, Thomas, or IC, or Ride, more of your major manufacturers, so that you can still leverage it for the EPA clean school bus. Our Highland model, no matter what type of contract you specifically use, it's a bundled performance-based model. So we'll tell you exactly what the charger uptime is going to be. It's between 10 to 15 years, depending on the specific state, charter versus school districts. But it's no upfront cost. It's an amortized fee over that contract. And that includes everything. So whether you want new vehicles, whether you want new chargers, whether you just want operations maintenance support, it's one annual fee and it's ongoing support. So instead of chasing a charger company for questions, a vehicle company for questions, you call Highland and we will diagnose the one specific issue and it's one accountable partner. Why considering an O&M or other sort of line augmentation contracts is as Will alluded to, that warranty no longer exists for your buses, your line buses. So we're able to extend that warranty, provide that additional operations support, and it keeps your vehicles running to at least a certain degree. You don't want just paperweights. You want vehicles that can somewhat be used, and we can help do that. We extend that vehicle lifespan, so we can provide those ongoing inspections, tell you exactly what to fix, so that you're preventing future issues, as well as you can leverage our FleetX software, where you're seeing exactly what the issue is when you do have a problem, reporting and identifying parts tracking opportunities. Can't share the specific district, but this is a case study of a district that we were about to work with in the Midwest. Because even if you want to do an O&M contract, which means operations and maintenance, kind of augmenting your fleet, you want to make sure that you're leveraging a managed charging system. So we're happy to help with that. But what managed charging is doing is it's saying it's charging your fleet at exactly the times that would be cheapest to you. So we look into when there are demand charges, when there's specific time of use rates in your utility. And we are setting up and programming your charger and buses so they only charge at the most efficient times. So whether that's midday, so like after the school buses come back from routes, so like at 10 to 2, or overnight, it's really important that even if you have line buses, you want to keep them on the road, you're leveraging a managed charging contract. And that can save school districts between 40 to 60%. This touches on our FleetX software, as I mentioned, but the value add is you're able to quickly diagnose issues, understand performance, and as you get your fleet back up and running your line fleet to an operable state, it's giving you exactly the steps that you need to fix your fleet. This is my colleague Matthew's information. I can also drop my contact information in the chat as well. Either one of us can be a resource, even just as a thought partner. As you have an Lion fleet, you want to get it up and running on what to do, whether you should scrap them, if you can do an O&M fleet, or you just want to do some managed charging, just so they're operable and you get some sort of use out of them. But best of luck and thanks for having us on.
Thank you so much, Dan. All right, so we have kicked off that survey. So if you have not answered it and maybe you minimized it and you don't know where to find it, if you look down at that bottom control bar, there's a little circle with some dots in it and it says more. Click more, go to polls and quizzes. Bam! The survey pops right back up. So one of you have filled it out. Thank you so much. There are three more of you, which we would love to have you fill out the survey before you leave. So now you know how to find it again after you've minimized it. So if you could do that, that would be wonderful. So next up, we are going to have any Q&A right now. If anybody has any more questions before we move on to some additional resources that we have pulled together and we sent to many of you ahead of time. So if you were registered, you know, before a few days ago, we sent you an email that has some links and some resources, and these are the resources that we're going to be going through briefly today. And I'm going to turn over the microphone to Tyler for a moment, um, so he could just talk you through the resources that we have available.
Yes, hello everybody. Yeah, so I'll just briefly tap through these kind of four resources on the right of the screen. And you're actually showing the presenter view, so
Oh,
the
it's
next
still
slide
it's
is on the
showing?
side.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just so they can make sure they read it. No, it's fine.
I'll fix it. Boom. I just picked the wrong screen. There you go.
Sweet. So going on the resources on the right, I'm just going to give a brief overview of each of those. I think they're absolutely worth looking through on your own. That top resource, the Emergency Response Guide, is really, really good.
Sorry.
That is basically a database, a searchable database of the emergency response guides for every electric vehicle manufactured and sold or sold in the United States. So this is from like passenger cars to buses to trucks. And these are the guides that help first responders understand how they can approach vehicles. So this has stuff like the power disconnects, the high voltage power disconnects, cut points, all those sorts of things for the vehicles. So they're really, really good resources to kind of know about. Whenever we're working with fleets, looking at electric vehicles, we often start engaging with the firefighters and the first responders in their area of that fleet to make sure that they know that these vehicles are coming to their town, and they know kind of how they're going to approach those. And so being able to send this to them just in case they don't have it front of hand is a great way to say like, hey, here's what these vehicles are. This is the make and model. Here are the guides you can look through. So it's a really, really great resource. The next two resources are videos put together by the National Labs for the Clean Cities program, which is what we're part of. The first is energy use and fuel economy. It's a relatively short video, but it's fairly technical. So it kind of describes how we think about energy usage and fuel efficiency with electric vehicles, because they're not using a traditional fuel like a gaseous or a liquid fuel. So we think about efficiency slightly differently, measure it in miles per kilowatt hour and some other metrics. So it's a relatively technical, like 8-minute video that goes over thinking about energy use and fuel economy for electric buses. But it's a great resource to kind of just listen through and kind of get a feel for how we think about efficiency with these things and how that impacts your driving. And then a third one, that next video is a little bit deeper, but more on the operation side of efficiency, looking at route analysis, thinking about how to do route planning, the range of electric buses, and considerations for efficiency in more practical setting. So again, that kind of goes off of what that second video is, but it's a little bit less technical and a little bit more focused on the actual operations of a fleet. And then that last page is the fourth resource is really a fantastic kind of catch-all place for finding other resources by topic around electric school buses. So it's searchable, it's filterable, really large database of tons of resources from stuff like blog posts to kind of technical documents and those sorts of things and guides. So that's another kind of fantastic just place to start looking if you're kind of having a question around electric school buses or trying to think these things through.
Awesome, thank you. And what I'm going to do is real quick is I do have some of these things open right now. So this document, which we've emailed to all of you, like I said, unless you registered late, and then we can send it to you after the fact. It's short and it just has some really great little things, and this handy little formula that we have in here, just high level concepts about your battery and battery state of charge, tips for extending your battery life, talks about preconditioning, which we discussed earlier, and also, right sizing your battery. understanding your routes to save money, and just a little bit of route assessment tips. This, like I said, this is not a really intensive document. In fact, this right here is your last page, and it has some more, well, that was the last page, and you got some resources here. So this is something good that you can print and download and share with people in your office. And also to show you what Tyler was talking about, I do have it open. Where is Safari? So we go here. You don't need to see that. You want to see, here's the resource library and the website. And here is that emergency response guide. You can literally just pick whatever vehicle it is for electric vehicles by the manufacturer, and you pick the model and you say apply, and the safety guides. Oh, you are not seeing that. Let me do that again. There you go. Right here. You can, this is the emergency response guides Tyler was talking about, where you can come in here and you can pick your bus and the type, and you can apply, and you can see the guide, and you can download it here. So it's really simple. These are some great resources, and we're about to wrap it up today. All right, so at this point, we want to remind you that next week, same time, same place, different link, is the final installment of this training series. And it is going to be on developing a reliable charging plan. So charging, as you hear, is one of the most important things, that one of the issues that needs the most attention, the most planning. We're going to have a panel of utilities on next week, so you can ask the utilities any questions, and they can give you tips about how to work with them and when to get started working with them and what you should do for that. So if you have not registered for that one, or you think there's someone else in your office who should register, there is still time to get them on for that very last session. All right, and thank you all so much for joining us today. If you have not finished the survey, please do that. We will be sending you resources after the fact. We're going to send you reminders about next week's training session. And again, we are going to do an informal meeting cohort, so we can just have some more discussions and talk about this. And we're going to send you another survey. This one will be via email to find out what your future support needs are. If you would like more training, if you would like personalized training, if you would like to have some sort of EV showcase where you could look at the school buses and touch it, do you want help with the next funding round? Because EPA, we hear, is coming out with another round of clean school bus funding, and you should be able to apply for other alternative fuels as well, in addition to electric. And that is one thing that as a Clean Cities and Communities Coalition, we love to assist with. We can help you with your funding application, and of course, bring in all these great experts to help you with your project and your application as well. Any last questions for our panelists, or any closing thoughts from the panelists? All right. So we will give you your Tuesday morning back. Thank you all so much for being with us today. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week. Thank you.